Welcome back. In the previous step, we created methods. We said print hello world twice, and this prints hello world twice. This is the method which we created. We will start this video with a specific tip, and then we would jump into something called arguments or parameters. What we are using right now is something called Python shell. The important thing about a Python shell is if you close this window, if you exit out of the Python window, if you say exit, go out of it and come back, then you would see that the definition of print hello world twice is lost. So remember that, and if you want to be really safe, just scroll up, just drag and scroll up and copy the code and keep it. So before you exit, just copy the code and have a copy of it so that when you re-enter shell, you'd be able to copy it in. Now, that tip aside, the thing which we are doing in here is print hello world twice. But then we did print hello world thrice, right? 3 times. Let's say I would want to print it 5 times. What would I need to do? I need to write another method where I would print hello world 5 times. Doesn't that seem monotonous? Instead of that, wouldn't it be great if I can say print hello world and I would want to print it 5 times, and it would print hello world 5 times? Wouldn't it be great? That's what we would do in this specific step. The 5 which we are passing in here is called an argument. So we are invoking this method with 5 as the value. Before we would be able to invoke a method passing a value, we would need to define it. So how do we define a method to accept a argument? The way we would define a method to do that is very similar to the earlier method. So def name of the method, inside the parenthesis we are going to give a name. So I would call this number of times. So the name of the parameter I'm defining in the method. So inside the method we define parameter. So the parameter which we are using in here is called number of times. We are saying this method print hello world uses a parameter called number of times. One of the things is, if you have a little bit of experience with other programming languages, some of them would require you to say this is an integer, this is a string, and all that kind of stuff. With Python, you don't need to define a type. So all that you need to say is number of times and put a colon, and over here now I can for now just say print hello world, and after that I would say print number of times and press enter. So now we are defining a print hello world method. We are not exactly implementing the logic which we wanted. For now we just printed hello world and number of times which is passed in. Now let's try and execute this. What would happen if I say print hello world? Aha, error. It says print hello world missing one required positional argument, number of times. It's saying, hey, you have created print hello world with a parameter. You're not passing anything in here, and that's not cool. Go ahead and pass something. Now let's call it again, and let's now pass in a value. So let's say I'm passing in 5. Print hello world 5, and now you'd see hello world and 5 being printed. So hello world and number of times is 5. That's cool, isn't it? So now we are able to define this method to accept a value and print it. So now you can pass any value to this 10, 100, and you'd see that being printed in here as well. That's cool, isn't it? Now you can pause the video in here and try and think of a solution where you can define this method to print hello world as many times. So if I say print hello world 5, I want to print hello world 5 times. How can you do that? Think about it, pause the video in here and try it as an exercise. I'm sure it's a very interesting exercise. Think about something called loops. There was one loop that we discussed, and probably you can use that to solve this problem. Try it as the exercise before you look up the solution. Now let's go ahead and see what the solution for it is. So we would want to define the method, print hello world number of times. As with any method inside the body of the method, we would want to start with spaces. That's one of the things you should always remember. Whether you're talking about a for loop, whether you're talking about a method, you should give spaces at the start to indicate that that is the content of that specific method. So now I've given spaces, and now I would want to print hello world. But before printing hello world, I would want to have a for loop. So I would say for I in how many times? For starting off, what I'll say is for I in range of 1 to 10. Oops, I made a mistake. You know what the mistake is? Try and debug it and think what is the error. I missed a colon. That's a mistake. So for I in range, again, the important thing is starting from for. So you can see that I've given spaces 1, 2, 3, the same as these spaces that I've given for 4. And then inside the for loop, I would want to execute this code. So I would give even more spaces because I would want this code to be inside the for loop. So what we are doing in here is we are typing in print, and I would say hello world. Enter, and again enter. For now, what we are doing is we are printing hello world 10 times. Let's execute it. Pass 5. Oops, another error. It's saying name range is not defined. Think what is the error I made? Think about it. It's very important that you would be able to debug things, right? So the important thing over here is the name of the function is small r. So in range 1 to 10, and print hello world. Make sure that you have Make sure that you have 4 spaces here and 8 spaces before print, and press enter, enter. And now let's try it again. Okay, there you go, success. So print hello world 5 is now printing the hello world 10 times. However, what do I want to do? I would want to do it only 5 times. How can I do that? Think about it. How can I do that? For I in range 1 to, let's start with number of times. This is not perfect, but let's start with it. Okay, number of times. Make sure that you are giving the right amount of spaces. Press enter again, and now execute it again. You can see that it's printing 4 times only. It's not printing 5 times. The reason why it's not printing 5 times, think about it, because number of times is exclusive. So it's not included. So what I can do, think about it, I can say number of times plus 1 over here. So def print hello world, I can say for I in range number of times plus 1, print hello world, and let's see what would happen now. It's printing 5 times. If I say 7 times. Isn't that cool? Isn't that very good function now? So it's saying print hello world 5 times, and we are printing hello world 5 times. Print hello world 7 times, and it's printing 7 times. All that we had to do was very simple. Def is the same as any other method, name of the method. We included a parameter called number of times. We used that in the range function and did the print. One of the things that you need to always be cautious about in Python are the indentation. Over here, the for loop is part of the method body. So we have an indentation. The print is part of the for loop. So we have another indentation over here. In this video, we learned how to pass arguments to a method. In the method, we are defining a parameter, and we are using it in the body of the method. And when we are calling the method, we can pass it as a argument. So we are passing 5 as an argument, 7 as an argument in here, and we are able to use that and execute it in the body of the method. Isn't that cool? I'll see you in the next step. Until then, bye-bye.